It's the Resident podcast with our weekly news review, joined this week by Chris Graeme. Well, welcome back, Chris. Great to have you here.
Thanks. Lovely to be here with you.
And you have an essential business, I think, hitting the streets soon. Please share more.
Yeah, the magazine is going to the printers this afternoon, and sometime, hopefully within a week, it'll kind of be out, and also online as well. So we'll put it online.
Okay, so watch out for essential business. If you're in business in Portugal, you should be taking a look at it, basically, right?
Yeah, I think so. We're doing it. We did a big story about TAP.
Okay.
We had David Sampson, who's our regular columnist, do an in-depth look at TAP from its beginnings, all the financial problems to date, and asks whether or not this time it will be a successful privatization, or whether the government will just meddle like it did last time.
How fascinating. And maybe a new acronym. It will no longer be Take Another Plane. It may stand for something else, TAP. Let's find out in the next few months as that unfolds. The wonderful Natasha.donn is here as well from The Resident. How are you today, Natasha?
Really good.
Okay, starting with a little stroll on the beach, I understand.
Yeah, always.
Great way to start the day. Okay, let's get into the news then. Kick us off, if you will, please, Natasha. Then we'll go to Chris for the state of the nation in a little while. And then I've got something I'm calling snowfall. Which will be the meaning of which will be revealed later on. A minister who we've quite liked the cut of his jib, but his career seems to have taken a little bit of a twist just recently. But we're looking at Galp's plan for 19,000 home community on a former refinery site. That's not going to be in the real estate particulars, is it? Former refinery.
This is the thing. This is the reason I chose this, because obviously so much else is happening, as Chris is going to talk about the state of the nation debate that we've done a lot of sort of preambles about. And then there's all the controversy about the Minister of the Interior administration having a building done, that wasn't given permission for by a developer, blah, blah, blah. But that's all over the newspapers. And so I kind of thought to myself, well, what isn't? Oh, and another thing that's all over the papers, which is also fantastic, is that it does look like there's an enormous amount of pushback against the government's plans to plaster large swathes of the countryside with solar panels and wind farms. So that is fabulous. That is fabulous.
Yes, personally, I would like to be grateful for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's really beginning to look quite positive. So I thought, well, what is being lost in this general cacophony of essentially idiotic stories, because they just go round and round.
Excellent analysis already.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be funny. I was actually being serious.
Yes.
But then I looked at this story, and it really made me think, because in 2019, I did a story also about what was going on in Lisbon, where they were also building very bijou residences on the land of a former refinery. It was called Portugal. Do you know about this one, Chris?
Yes, yes, I do.
Yeah, so there was a bit of controversy then, because there were people with eye infections, people with respiratory infections, oil slicks on the water. I mean, this contamination was not being seen to be being dealt with as it should have been, although everybody said, oh, yes. But Zero, the NGO, was making a bit of a fuss. And then, of course, it all died down, because the interests behind those developments and the money behind investment and the need for investment in this country always speaks louder than the environment, or tends to. So that's why this one sort of hit me, because this refinery in Matosinhos was only decommissioned a few years ago. I think we're talking 2 years ago. They were talking about how much decontamination, how many years it would take to clean the area, and the area would never, they said, be used for housing.
Yes.
Suddenly, 2 years on, suddenly Galp thinks it's absolutely fine. We're going to do 19,000 homes. They won't be council homes. They won't be homes that are addressing the housing crisis, for sure not. They're going to be, again, marketed as bijou residences. And then you see at the end of my story, I say, but no one's mentioning this because no story did. Because it's just because I think that sometimes when you've been working for so long, little things ring in your befuddled head full of nonsense. Yes. And you think, hang on, didn't I write about this some time ago? And that's when, of course, I remembered the story in Lisbon. And this thing is they talk about decommissioning and decontaminating, these terrible sites. And then within 2 years, they're back with, oh, come on, yeah, let's just do 19,000 homes. But I think it's chilling. Fortunately, the council is opposing it because probably the council knows the extent of the pollution, essentially. I mean, we're talking about serious chemicals. I mean, remember, it was used as a refinery for about 50 years.
Yes, so the land is not ideal, but
no,
land is afoot.
No, but they can decontaminate. I mean, if you look at Expo, Expo was built on super contaminated land and all the houses around it. I mean, more contaminated with heavy metals and I don't know what else, and petrol and byproducts you couldn't have had. Yet they did. But providing the land is decontaminated, which it can be. Yeah. I don't think there's a problem. But the problem for me is that they're backtracking now. You see, apparently they're only going to build, only 10% of the land there is going to be made available for housing because they're building a kind of, I don't know, a kind of technology hub thing up there. Yeah. And, they're only earmarking 10% of that land for housing. So I don't think at the end of the day, it's going to even remotely solve even 1% of the housing problem if you're just making 10% of the land available for housing.
And this is the sort of slippage you're taking issue with, right, Natasha? First of all, they say you shouldn't
what I'm taking issue with is the thought that they could be building for housing this quickly after the land was so contaminated. It doesn't sit well with me. But then remember, I'm somebody who thinks much more about the environment than about investment. So I'd be a disaster on any government.
Yes,
but I think Natasha, providing they do decontaminate the land,
but that's the big proviso, Chris. You see, we can never be absolutely sure, can we?
No,
because they just say it, and everybody these days just says it. Look at Donald Trump saying that China is disrupting all the elections, which apparently he just has been saying. It's all rubbish. So we can't necessarily listen to people just because they've said something.
No.
Well, so how might accountability be brought into this? I mean, because this connects very well with the state of the nation, doesn't it? And a recent poll as well showing a big dissatisfaction, and nothing new that there is a big Portuguese population dissatisfaction with the government, but it's the trend is upwards in terms of dissatisfaction, and the very issue you're talking about, Natasha, about how one thing is said, but the actual reality becomes something else. How do we bring about that sort of accountability?
Well, this is the big problem. I was walking today thinking, well, I'm not going to say much against the state of the nation. I'm not going to try and be too combative in whatever we talk about the state of the nation, because we don't have a great choice, I don't think. I mean, we've got the most awful government, but I don't know if the alternative is any better. Right. And I think this is the problem. Getting accountability with people that are not even honest is going to be very difficult.
It is indeed, which leads
very difficult. I don't have the answers.
We will keep an eye on. Well, you'll continue to write about the issues in the Resident, of course, and this GALP's plan for the 19,000 home community on former refinery faces council opposition, and the usual, I suppose, slippage and sleights of hand that may accompany such things. If it does turn out as beautiful as Expo, where I was earlier this week, that would be a remarkable and wonderful thing. I mean, that's an incredible credit, isn't it, to the visionaries of Lisbon at that time, Chris? You mentioned Expo there. Could you explain?
I think it was, and I think it was roundly held up internationally as an example of turning a completely obsolete and contaminated brownfield industrial site and requalifying and regenerating it in what even today is still held up as a wonderful urban regeneration plan. Yeah. And look, I think what we need to do maybe as journalists is we need to contact Quercus and other organizations, environmental organizations, and find out, in fact, what the government is going to do and what Galp is going to do to decontaminate that land.
Exactly. If it is actually, what they say, because I mean, it was only a couple of years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, that they said it would take several years to clear, and now suddenly, boom, we're all talking about let's go, let's do. And I just didn't like the thought of it, because of course you don't know. You build these things, and everybody has their car in the basement and blah, blah, blah. And a few people get a cough and other people get this. And nobody knows until much later on that, oh, yes, you've been breathing in all this rubbish because it wasn't properly sealed. You just don't know. It's not something that happens.
Don't. It's true. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, Erin Brockovich style situations come after rather than some decent.
It's like what's going on, if you think about it, in that, around the airbase in the Açores. People are not all ill at the same time, but they are all strangely developing cancers in an exponential amount.
Didn't know about that. Okay, which presumably you've reported.
Oh yeah, that's a story we've been doing for a long, long time. But of course, the Americans say there's nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. However,
there must be something to see.
Yes. Well, there was something to see in the Parliament yesterday. It was the annual State of the Nation address, was it not, Chris?
It was gripping. Yeah. Well, it wasn't gripping. I mean, it was the usual. it was the usual fist fighting,
right?
Between the various parties, and I was heartened by the fact that, in fact, the PSD and the PS are kind of becoming much closer together in terms of their policy outlooks. And there is a distancing now from Shager. So Shager's now starting to lose ground.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God.
And I'm quite happy about that, really, but on a personal level. Although I've met Andre Ventura many times and spoken to him many times, and he's thoroughly charming.
I'm sure.
The people behind him, unfortunately, But anyway, let's get back to the State of the Nation. Okay, it's a story of the good, the bad, and the ugly, really. I mean, it's interesting that from a foreigner's perspective, from an outsider's perspective, Portugal is kind of doing well. It's got a good reputation for financial housekeeping. And, we've had budget surpluses in recent years. We've paid down the national debt to 89% and 89.7% of GDP. We've got quite robust exports, given the geopolitical situation, with around 50% of all companies now actually exporting, which is good. And we have a thriving technological ecosystem based on data and AI centers, and also many successful unicorns and startups. Mm-hmm. So for such a small country, we're really pulling our weight. Plus, we've got the wonderful news that, more and more, 70% of Portugal's power is from renewable sources, and this cannot be denied. So these are the good things. But the problem now still is there is still a painful lack of large and medium-sized companies. There's too many micro and small companies, which means it's very difficult for Portugal to up its productivity. And Portugal's productivity is only 60% of the kind of European average, which is really frightening. I mean, only Greece, countries like Greece and some obscure Eastern European states kind of do worse than us. And what's frightening for me is it's been a problem that's been mentioned by every successful government, every successive economist since I arrived here 30 years ago. And there seems to be no plan really to figure out how to change this. Mm-hmm. So it is a real problem. And then there's the other problem that, despite putting up wages, which they have, public sector wages at least, there's no evidence that it's, the Portuguese are better off. They're not. And you see also, you can only put up wages in an economy if your figures add up. Yes. To justify that in terms of productivity and competitiveness. I'm sorry to say that, but it really is true. Yeah. Because people, you could argue that if people have more money in their pockets, they're going to put more money into the economy. But people generally spend things, on, if they've got a lot of money, they'll spend it on a swimming pool, or they'll get a new car, or they'll do what I did and go on holiday. They don't spend it on things that are going to really improve Portugal's economy. So, by doing that, the country risks inflation, and it risks a whole raft of problems because Portugal's economy just didn't justify upping the wages. So Portugal has to kind of really look at that. Otherwise, we're going to be slipping behind Latvia, Bulgaria, and Greece.
Good heavens. Now, so that's the equation that needs attacking in a way, isn't it? And I thoroughly agree with you. If you put wages up, people won't think, great, let's work harder. They will say, finally, we've got the pay rise we've been wanting for the last 20 years. That's what it should be.
They're not going to work buying much because everything else has gone up so much. Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm throwing a curved ball into things now, but has anybody noticed that tourism seems to be very much quieter this year?
Yes, very much, particularly in Lisbon. Very much.
And I think it's because we got too greedy. I think the prices here are just too high. And this is why, of course, upping your wages by whatever it was doesn't make much difference. You still can't afford to pay a rent easily. You still can't afford. I mean, the coffee in my town is unbelievable. If you go to anything that is not a simple Portuguese Tasca type of place, that people are charging the most ridiculous amounts. And you think, how do they justify this in this country? And I think it's put people off. I mean, it's much quieter as far as I can see.
I would agree with you. I can't speak for the Algarve. You would have to look at the figures, the preliminary figures from Turismo of the Algarve. But in Lisbon, certainly, it's not like screaming with tourists, packed, suffocating with them. I regularly go to the Baixa and I'm not fighting my way through crowds. There are the foreigners, obviously, that are coming here. But I think partly this isn't because Lisbon has lost its allure or is becoming too expensive. I think this really has to do with geopolitical problems. I think all the flights have gone up. Those that didn't book their flight, you cannot get. I mean, I'm going to London at the end of this month to England for a couple of weeks. My ticket ended up, even the cheapest one I could get, ended up being like nearly €300.
Wow.
Yes. And all the prices since this Gulf thing started, all of the companies have put up their rates.
Yes, whether they needed to or not, that crisis did not go wasted.
No. It really didn't. So I think what's happened is a lot of people have stayed at home. I mean,
I think you're right.
The biggest market for the UK. Sorry, the biggest market for Portugal is the UK. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I think Spain is also a very big market for the Algarve.
Yeah. The Spaniards coming across. Yes.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
But
I remember seeing a story or doing a story on that. And I think Spain was still a very significant market.
Yep, Spaniards love to come to Portugal for sure. Whether or not
the beaches are much better here. The food is better.
Yes, and the
I'm
people
not sure about the prices.
and the people as well. Right, okay, right. Yes, let's steer away from the bad marriages and bad wins scenario, shall we? And I want to ask you, Chris, 300 to get back to UK and back to Portugal again.
Yeah, ridiculous.
No, but Chris, that's what I've always paid.
No, really? I used to book one in advance, I suppose. And I used to get tickets for 120, 140.
Wow.
That's quite a hike.
I mean, until fairly recently.
Yeah.
But okay, I bought this at the last minute because I will admit I am going to see my favorite singer for the last time because I don't think she'll be able to perform much longer. Diana Ross, I'm talking about.
Oh.
So I'm going to go and see her. She's performing in the UK.
She must be, how old is she? 85?
She's 82.
Wow.
Incredible. Is she not performing in Portugal?
She performed in Portugal back in 2002. And I remember I pleaded with David Moral Ferreira, who ran EMI, Valentin Carvalho. I said, please get me a ticket. I said, I'll write about it. But I said, you have to get me a ticket. And this was at the casino in Estoril. And he got me a front seat dinner ticket.
My goodness,
in the casino. And
the circles he moves in, Natasha. Front page, front row.
I know.
Well, no, it was good. No, it was, and she was fantastic then. But I don't think she'll be so good now because she relies very heavily on background singers because she's 82.
Oh, fair enough. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, have a great trip. That sounds well worth it. That sounds well worth it. Anything else to say on the state of the nation? The Socialist Party released a new deck of cards I think, to honour the occasion. These some might say they've got too much time on their hands, right?
Can you buy these?
Would you like some? I'll see if I can find you some. But they're extraordinary. I mean, it's AI, I'm guessing. It probably didn't take very long.
Okay.
Yes, the AI generation. I'll send those to you, Chris. But the Socialist Party had a little pop at the leadership, I think, there. And going back to the survey I mentioned, just to complete on the state of the nation, not only the actual event, but the literally the state of the nation. Public dissatisfaction with the government has deepened. 51% of respondents to a new survey saying conditions are worse than a year ago. Even so, support for stability remains strong, as 79% oppose an early election. Thank goodness for that. That's from Portugal Decoded this morning. Sorry, Natasha, you were going to add something.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think I read something this morning that said that it is what in line with what Chris was saying, that the PSD and the PS now are kind of neck and neck in the polls anyway. It would be, there's no point having elections.
No, nobody wants, the public don't want
Nobody
it.
wants
No, absolutely no point. But it doesn't mean that people are happy with the government. So it's a bit of a sort of like...
But they're never happy. When have they ever, in 30 years, tell me, Natasha, when have they ever been happy with the government?
I don't know. There was a moment, wasn't there? Didn't you find that there was this moment of tremendous hope when the socialists came in with their crazy contraption? There was a kind of moment of, wow, what's going to happen? I wonder how we're going to do this. It was kind of positive. And then, of course, it all fell apart.
Well, of course, and the Bloc d'Esquerda now is considered a non-party. I mean,
I know. Well, I think with good reason.
Well, nobody supports them.
Well, that might be.
They all support. All their supporters went to Chega. Isn't that awful?
That is just
so
beyond,
cynical,
beyond,
so cynical.
And that just sort of says everything, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, I think the Portuguese only, since they only think about their umbigo, you know. They only think about the, you know, they don't have a capacity to think what's good for the economy in the long term.
What is an umbigo, Chris? May I just...
Your belly button. They only think about themselves.
I thought so, yeah. Contemplating one's own navel in Portuguese, the umbigo. Right, okay, umbilical. Very good. Okay, so there's Chris's and Natasha's State of the Nation analysis right there, and the Portuguese political psyche. We will stay with it because we're looking at this minister for the... well, he's actually... Home Affairs, is he not? Is that his correct title?
Internal Administration, Home Affairs, exactly.
So not for the Interior. That was my mistake. I've been describing him as not. I've mistaken internal for interior, but he's Home Affairs, really.
Well, you could say Interior Administration.
Right. Okay. Well, this chap, we quite like the cut of his jib so far, have we not? He's come in. He's an ex-police officer, so understand it, high ranking, and he's got stuff done. And people have thought, yeah, this is the sort of minister we need, making things happen, taking responsibility for things, and you know, being some strong leadership. However, he's been involved. This is Luís Neves, Minister for Home Affairs, Administração Interna, came in February 26, replacing Maria Lúcia Amaral. But just in the last week or so, there was the Chega clash. Andre Ventura, who you mentioned, Chris, earlier on, is now demanding his resignation. He's demanding Senor Neves's resignation, and argued Neves doesn't have the conditions to continue in office. I think they had a little bit of a push and shove, if not physically, then certainly verbally, accusing him of directly threatening the largest opposition party, that would be Chega. Ventura released raw footage of an exchange of words with the minister, rejecting Neves's claim that the footage had been manipulated. So I think he was taking a moment to give Ventura a piece of his mind, which it turns out was recorded, for which Ventura is seeking resignation. And then some corruption type stuff as well about his home in the Alentejo as well. The most funny part of which is the swimming pool, allegedly, that he has, which he claims is a cattle water tank, not a swimming pool. I mean, I don't know if his Frisians like umbrellas and sun lounges and so on.
No, it doesn't. It obviously it looks like a swimming pool, but a very, very sad one. Okay. This is just, as far as I can see, I don't know what Chris thinks, but this is like a huge fuss made out of nothing.
Oh no, completely. They did it with that Ana Gomes. They did this with Ana Gomes.
Exactly. Okay. But I think the reason it started was because Neves said, when he was the director of the PJ, he denied that there was any connection between a rise in crime and immigration. And they did not like that. They hated him for that. Because actually, to be honest, there is a tremendous connection, because we've had tremendous problems with gangs from Brazil and drug trafficking from Brazil. And so there is a connection, but he wanted to keep it down. He said there wasn't. And since then, it's got worse and worse and worse. I mean, have you seen today, there's something about a trailer full of drugs?
Well, that's what I'm going to go on to tell you about, actually. In the last couple of days, the backstory is in 2024, Operation Pacoba dismantled one of Europe's largest cocaine labs, seizing roughly nearly 1,500 kilograms of cocaine, weapons, cash, and vehicles, the usual sort of seizure, including a trailer lorry. This is the key information here. Trailer lorry that had been that had contained ammonia, a precursor used in synthetic drug production. Apparently, that trailer vanished from the PJ's seized goods yard in Sejal in 25, and now it's turned up, hitched to a truck at the premises of close to the premises.
I think it's close to. So, in other words, it's been planted.
Oh, okay, wow. Well, I don't know.
Well, I mean, if it was on his breakfast table or something, then you could say, gosh, you know? But the fact is, it's close to. So they got as close as they could, and then they left. And then they put it all over the press. I mean, you've got to remember, I don't know. I mean, Chris is doing business, and I think business probably is less full of lies. But when you're just doing general news, you've got to look at every single thing and try and remember that it is probably what somebody else wants you to think. It's not necessarily the truth at all.
No, fair.
Well, I think that's true right across the board, isn't it? I mean, everything's an opinion.
Yes.
And everything is, it's like, what is the truth? It's a very difficult question. Because one person's truth is another person's lie, and there are shades of grey. It's really, really hard. I mean, I don't think it was a plant. I just think it was just probably a.
Can I explain though that this trailer that had been seized, it was connected to the construction company that had been doing the work in question? That's come up as well as a controversy, hasn't it?
Sure. So it could be that the construction company took it by mistake, put it in their warehouse, because I mean, obviously, it's still loaded with whatever they've got on it. You know, the ammonia, the cocaine, or whatever. There's going to be a lot more that needs to be explained, but it's another lurch in this absolutely ridiculous story.
Okay, so
you wonder who are they trying to take down? Are they trying to take down the minister and the construction guy?
That's your suspicion, then. I'm just telling you what I've heard about this, and it's interesting to me the trajectory of his career, how he's come in and been quite an impressive individual politically. And doing his job, if you like, as one might hope, and now he's been drawn into, a bit of this part of the wool is being pulled, isn't it, from the jersey of his political career, perhaps? And you suspect this is all staged and manipulated to bring him down because he's not liked?
I mean, no. I mean, it might be staged to bring him down because he's one of the only ministers that's actually getting things done. I mean, the thing is, we're in the middle of the wildfire season, and he was getting things done.
Yes.
On top of everything. To be, in my idea, let's just put all this to one side. Let's get through the wildfire season. Let's get this country through.
Yes.
And then in October, November, let's look at all this nonsense and see who was behind it or what was causing it. Listen, this man comes from 8 years running the judicial police. There's going to be all kinds of things he knows that we don't really need to know, that maybe he should forget. There's
and
lots
others
of
don't want us to know, perhaps, as well.
Exactly. And there's lots of things. And there are going to be a lot of people that aren't happy that he's made this wonderful leap.
Yes.
The other thing that made me think, just thinking about marriages in general and how busy everybody is, all this fuss is to do with this property isn't actually his property in as much as it's his wife is running she's invested in a logement local and she wants to rent these properties out. I mean, obviously that property that they're talking about isn't ready at all. It looks miserable. It looks along the lines of the the terrible prison we talked about last podcast. But you see, if you think about it, he's the government minister and she's running a company. It's quite possible that she did things that he didn't even know about.
Well, yes, this does happen. It has a
and
whiff
then
of
he's gone, oh my God, Maria, what were you thinking?
Well, the Prime Minister knows all about that, doesn't he? The company affairs, and whilst you're busy running the country, your family are off doing other things, which can
doing their things. Because I remember there was a story about journalists are saying they were chased by his son in a car because they'd been on the premises taking photos, and obviously the son had seen it on the CCTV, so he must live nearby. Maybe he's involved in going to be running these businesses when they start. It sounded to me a bit like a family that was busy doing its stuff, but the guy at the top is going to take the fall.
Of course. Well, yes, we shall see. So we'll keep an eye on that. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you, Natasha. Just a couple of comments that have come in that have been inspired by our discussion, I think, this morning. I consider all news biased propaganda until proven otherwise. It's not a bad place to start. Douglas is here as well. Governments always seem to hide inconvenient truths. What? Tell me it's not so, Dougie. They try to mitigate a potential public backlash. And Rui is here as well. Or unrest, loss of control. I think that's connected to something else. But Rui goes on to say, important note, former older generation police guys, and I think you're including Lewis Nevish in this. And that's why I called it snowfall. Nevish, the word for snow, of course. Former older generation police guys tend to be very authoritarian and slightly abusive when things don't go their way. Call it leftovers from a bygone era. That minister must go, he says. And isn't news too often about narratives? Well, we'll leave that hanging there until we consider the news again next Friday. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Natasha. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye for now. Bon fin de semana. Ciao, ciao.